Kerberos is a computer network authentication protocol that works on the basics of tickets to allow nodes communicating over a non-secure network. So simply, Kerberos is the authentication protocol, and you need to be verified to access the resources like SQL service, FTP service, etc. So Kerberos contains two parts. One is authentication server and ticket granting server. First, we will be talking about the authentication server in this video, that is the Kerberos pre-authentication. Kerberos pre-authentication is a security feature which offers protection against password guessing attacks. Simply, brute forcing attacks. The AS request identifies the client to KDC in plain text. So we will be telling the key distribution center that we are this user. And if Kerberos pre-authentication is enabled, a timestamp will be encrypted using the user's password hash as an encryption key. So we will be encrypting our user's password hash. So we will be encrypting the timestamp with the user's password hash. And if the KDC reads a valid time when using the user's password hash to decrypt the timestamp, the KDC knows that request isn't a reply of previous request. So that means in order to get the valid TGT ticket, you need to know the user's password hash. Without Kerberos pre-authentication, a malicious attacker can directly send a dummy request to the authentication. Now the KDC should not reply anything, but the KDC will return an encrypted TGT and the attacker can brute force it online. So let's discuss this with the help of the diagrams to make better understanding. So we have the domain account user 1 and the domain controller. In the pre-authentication, we will be sending the request ASRIC, that is authentication service request. In this request, we will be sending some data, and that data includes the timestamp which is encrypted by the user hash and the username and the service name. So the service name here is KRBTGT because we are asking the Kerberos authentication service for the TGT ticket. Now we will be sending the request which contains the timestamp encrypted by the user hash. Upon receiving by the domain controller, we will try to decrypt this data using the user hash and checks the timestamp with this packet arrival timestamp, and if both matches, then it identifies that the user is legitimate and it will send the AS rep, that is AS reply, and which contains the TGT ticket. So this TGT ticket contains information about the user, user seed and group membership, and also the other data like the session key, which is also encrypted with the KRB TGT account password, and that is the TGT ticket. And along with that, we will be receiving the session key, and this session key is encrypted with user's password. So we can, if you obtain this encrypted user's password data, you can try to decrypt with the hashcat and get the user's password, and this all happens only when you know the user hash. So let's say you don't have the user hash, and if you try to do some modification and ask for the TGT for the user one, and the domain controller will identify that you are not the legitimate user. Now this is the scenario when the pre-authentication for that account is enabled. By default, the pre-authentication is enabled for all the accounts, and if in case if there is any misconfiguration, the pre-auth is disabled, then you can request for that user. You can request the TGT ticket for that user without having the user hash. So whenever the pre-authentication is disabled, Now you can pretend that you are the user 1 and you can directly ask for the TGT. So here since the pre-authentication is disabled, the KDC will directly send the encrypted TGT ticket which was encrypted by the user's password. Simply we can crack that offline with the hashcat. So this is my local Active Directory virtual machine. I have created the two users, test1 and test2. So right click on this, click on properties, and if you go to this account tab and scroll down, and here you can see the option do not require Kerberos pre-authentication. By default this is disabled, which is a good thing. Now what we are going to do is we are going to enable for this user test2. So I have already enabled this one. Click on apply. So sometimes you need to face some application that does not support the Kerberos pre-authentication. So in that case administrators can enable this one, do not require pre-authentication. So from our Kali Linux we will be using a tool called get np users. So that is from the Impacket, and Impacket tools are already installed in the Kali Linux. So if you type enter without any arguments, and here you can see these are the command line arguments you can pass. We will focus on the main things. First one is the no password. If you don't have a password for the user, and if you want to check for the account setting of the Kerberos pre-authentication, then you can do this no pass. And here you can see they gave some examples. Get a TGT for a user. So you need to specify the script and the domain user no pass. And you can see this one UF don't require pre-auth set. So this is one of the attributes. If you go to the test2, and here if you go to this attribute editor, and if you scroll down, and here you can see user account control, and at this user account control, and if you expand this one, you can see don't require pre-authentication. So this flag indicates that this account has disabled this Kerberos pre-authentication. Now in that case you need to access you need to have access for one of the user. So let's go and run this one, and you need to specify the domain controller IP address, which is 10.10.10.2 in my case, and then we are going to specify the domain name, that is tech69.local / username, that is test1. Now type the no pass. Let's assume we do not have the password for the test1 user, and here you can see first the tool is trying to getting the TGT for the test1, and it later found that user test1 does not have this flag set. Now what we are going to do is, if you specify if you don't specify the no pass, and the script will be asking for the password, and hit enter. Now you can see it is asking for the password. Type in the password, and now you can see after getting authentication it enumerated and got the list of all the accounts that has the Kerberos pre-authentication disabled. You can see the test2. Now if you go and say request, you will be getting the actual TGT ticket. So you can also say test2 directory, and if you give the wrong password, it cannot, the authentication gets failed, but we will be getting the ticket. So let's copy this hash, and we are going to use the tool called hashcat, and the mode is number is 13100 for ASREP. So you can look upon this in the Hashcat website. And I will be using some pass.txt. Obviously I took one of the password from this file and set the password for the test2 user. Now if you hit enter, let's say force, it says signature unmatched. Okay, maybe the mode was incorrect, sorry for that. So now you can see Hashcat has cracked the password, and the password is my password 2. So in this way you can see one small misconfiguration led to the whole account compromise. So the mitigations or the best security practices is disabling the Kerberos, enabling Kerberos pre-authentication. I mean the disabling do not require pre-authentication setting in that account. Also, even if the account setting is turned on, then you need to rely on the strong password. So you need to implement some strong password policy so that users do not keep less complex passwords.